This is the Inclusion Conversation. I'm your host, Grace Young Foster, founder and CEO of the Inclusion Initiative. I'm an adoptee, I'm a foster care alum, and I'm passionate about elevating our communities. It's time we're included and visible in the conversations about work, careers, and just life. Let's be visible and let's be loud. Join me now. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Inclusion Conversation. I'm your host, Grace Young Foster, founder and CEO of the Inclusion Initiative. It is API Heritage Month, so obviously I'm pumped to have our guest on today, Patrick Armstrong. Hello, good to see you.
Hello, Grace. Great to see you as well.
And Patrick and I have known each other for a couple of years now. He entered the parenting world just over a year ago. We've had a lot of the firsts since we've known each other, including, for me, building my first podcast. Patrick has had a handful. And we both have simultaneously been through this journey of reclamation of our stories, both as adoptees, as Asian Americans, just as human beings that really care about the world and the spaces that we're in. And so I'm really thrilled to have Patrick here with us and just share all the things about what he's doing and just talking about storytelling and how, he's been able to impact his local community as well in Indianapolis. And so before we get started, would like to remind everybody, if you're a fan of the show, please like, share, follow us. And I'm going to share a little bit about Patrick and his background. For anyone that doesn't know him, who's listening, which might be one or two of you. We all know Patrick. We're fans. And so Patrick
You make me seem like I'm a well-known person. I don't know about that.
You are for our audience. So
well, I appreciate that to your audience as well.
Yes. So Patrick Armstrong is in the business of connecting with people and connecting the dots in our stories. He is known as the host of the award-winning podcasts Conversation Piece and the Janchi Show, and working with various clients across Indiana, including the Indianapolis Colts, Purdue University, and most recently, Indy Design Week. Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Grace. That's the first time I've had anyone read that bio. So I've heard it read out loud, and it sounded good.
It's good.
Coming from you, so I appreciate it.
I'm really good at reading. So I'm glad.
That's a great notch on the belt for sure. Good at reading.
Good at reading. Check. Well, we're also good at talking, so let's do a little bit of that. And I've had the honor and pleasure of being on the Janchi Show, and just being able to follow your work and your story and your voice, being inspired by you, being motivated by you, feeling supported by you, and I hope vice versa as well in terms of the support and motivation, because
for sure.
As adoptees, as Asian Americans, as all the things, right? There's certainly not enough of us that have the privilege of doing this work. And, we can dive into that a little later. But it's been really big. I don't want to sound cheesy, but it's been a blessing, right? Being in your orbit, being in this ecosystem with you, and kind of we're building and creating not together in joint projects, but alongside each other in communities. So I'm really excited for this conversation. And, I would love to start with just hearing from you. It's been a while. So hearing from you, what is your story? What do you want people to know about your experience as an adoptee and as an Asian American?
For sure. Before I share that, I just want to say I remember the first conversation we ever had on Zoom about this idea that you wanted to do in terms of like bridging the gaps that exist in the professional space for adoptees and former foster youth. And here we are, a scant 2 years later, and you are knocking it out of the park. So, at least from my perspective. So I just want to say that I remember the idea of it, and to see it be realized and see realizing it every day is really cool to watch. So I appreciate you and seeing you do your thing.
Thank you. Oh, that's
100%.
awesome.
Yeah,
I needed that today. That felt like a warm hug. Thanks.
You're very welcome. From the Midwest, we send those warm hugs out. So my story, I was born in Seoul, I believe, in South Korea in 1990 in March. And according to my file, I was relinquished pretty immediately. My mother was single, unwed. So that was, I assume, the situation. And 3 months after I was born, I was here in the States. I was adopted by 2 white people who lived in rural Indiana, and that's where I spent my formative years. For the most part, had a pretty positive experience. Everything that you would think about in terms of a kid having a just general decent life, I probably had. And ended up going to college at Purdue, dropped out of college, and then just kind of job hopped, industry hopped, and city hopped for the next 10 years. And then met my now wife, Emily, and we started dating. Ended up in Chicago in 2018. In 2020, ended up back in Indianapolis. And that coincided with my identity journey and my coming to consciousness moment. What happened was we moved back from Chicago in May of 2020. And in June, we ended up watching a movie called Always Be My Maybe. At the same time as we decided to watch that movie, we were in lockdown because of COVID. The rhetoric around Asian people because of COVID was ramping up, and so was the violence towards Asian folks, specifically elderly people and women. And that had become like daily occurrence in our news cycles. State violence against Black folks also happening at the same time. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, many people, also daily occurrences in the news. And Emily and I were engaged at the time. We had talked about what it would look like to start a family, have kids. So all of that's happening. We sit down, watch this movie. And at the beginning of the movie, there's a flashback to them like cooking. And I don't know what it was about that particular scene, but that, in addition to everything else that was happening at the time, just like flipped a switch in my brain. And for the first time in my life, for the first time in 30 years, I thought to myself, I don't know what it means to be Asian American, or I don't know what it means to be Asian. And I just looked over at Emily and I was just like, how am I going to teach our kids to navigate the world as Asian? And I don't know how to do that. This is because for the first 30 years of my life, I spent the entire time rejecting that part of my identity, being very uncomfortable with anything Asian. This was my moment of rupture, one major moment of rupture. And it would send me down the path of falling into podcasting. The very next day, I would discover Dear Asian Americans, get connected to the first guest of that show, who would connect me to Jerry Wan, the host of the show, who would connect me to KJ Relke and Nathan Nowak, who I would then eventually start the Janchi show with, which is how we met you. And that show is all about the Korean adoptee and now Asian adoptee experience. And yeah, over the last 4.5 years, have done many, many things when it comes to not only my own individual journey and identity, but figuring out what it means to be part of a larger community and diaspora of people that share this experience. So lots of stuff. And that was kind of like a truncated version. And I definitely glossed over all of the not great things that happened when I was growing up. But for the most part, that's pretty much my story.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's really relatable, especially as like you and I are transracial adoptees. And so it just, the whole identity piece is just such a confusing thing.
Yeah.
Because you don't you don't belong in the white space, but that is what you assimilate into.
Right.
You don't belong in the Asian space, but that is literally what you are.
Right.
Literally what you see on your face. And you are trying all the time to also belong to your family.
Mm.
Some of us have a lot of challenges with that, others don't. But regardless, right, on top of that, then we're trying to belong with community, trying to belong in all these places that are just not made for us.
Yeah.
They don't reflect us. They have a completely different lived experience as us. And so, you know, what you're talking about in terms of this, like a teapot steaming moment where you're just like, boom, all the steam is coming out of your ears. Like, I have to figure this out. This is too much. This is enough of not really knowing how to navigate my own identity. And so it's super relatable to me, at least. I had a, you know, kind of a similar reckoning with those pieces.
Yeah, I definitely reached, I think it was probably a boiling point. I don't know that was the movie definitely a catalyst moment because it sent me to, again, it flipped the switch. And then it was just like my specific lived experience up until that point where not only do I listen to this podcast, but I have the audacity to send a cold email to the guest on that show and just ask him or essentially write too many paragraphs about my lived experience and being like, hey, I don't know anything about this, but I think I need to know. But I don't know where to start. And I'm really lucky that he one day later responded to me and sent me a study called Too Korean to Be White, Too White to Be Korean that was done by a Korean adoptee about the identity formation of 12 Korean adoptees who grew up in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
And so the past 24 hours was me only thinking about the Asian aspect of my identity, not thinking about the adoption portion of it. But 30 minutes into reading the study, I was like weeping at my computer because I was like, what? And I was like, not understanding why I was just crying over a scholastic paper. And what I realized was that I had never seen or heard or read before, like my own memories and like actual lived experience from another perspective. And I was like seeing what I had always felt too afraid to share with other people. And that was kind of the steam moment. But it wasn't like it was a yell. Like I definitely need to take off in a sprint and figure this out. But it was kind of like, it was like it still was like tight and like tightly wound up inside of me. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't yelling yet. The steam was definitely pouring out, but the loud like screaming to do it, it was just like, it was still trying to get over that hill of discomfort, and really step into it. It was definitely a boiling point because 30 years of rejection, like that's a lot. That's a long time. And here's the thing, since we're coming to consciousness, like I have met many adoptees who are 40, 50, or even 60 years old who don't have their moments of rupture until they are those ages.
Yeah.
And it's like the more time you get removed from these really significantly traumatic moments, the harder it becomes, the more difficult it is to like unpack it fully, to really reckon with it and get a chance at maybe not closure, but just like some semblance of like, okay, I can be okay with it, Yeah. It's a wild experience for sure.
It is. I mean, can we get deep for a minute?
Let's get it.
Okay. So reflecting on what you just said, right? There are folks that don't explore this till they're like 50, 60 plus. You got to explore this in your early 30s. And just, I guess, for people that are currently right in that space of just starting to explore what this means, to understand how they want to communicate and live their identity and own their narrative. I think 30-year-old Patrick would have said something different than this one.
Sure.
And so, like, just reflecting on that, what would you say to people beginning their journey?
I think that's a great question. I think what I would say, there's so many things. So I think the first thing that's coming to my mind right now, and I think this is probably the advice I would give to people, and it's a little abstract, but I'm going to say it anyways, is that you are allowed to be the author of your own story. I think when we first start exploring, like, I don't really know that that is the part of it that we're thinking about, because we're just trying to fill out the context of like what it means. Maybe not for our own sakes, but like you're discovering community, you're discovering literal like history, you're discovering books and memoirs and studies and all of these things that have been done. And I'm just talking about the adoptee aspect of it, not even like the ethnic or whatever intersectional identity or identities that you might be bringing to it as well. Like, you are stumbling upon so much stuff, contextual stuff that should be helping, that should have then help you better understand your own story.
Yeah.
And at the same time, like, when you start to like walk this path, know that you have the pen in your hand. You are no longer the scribble that's coming out of somebody else's pen. You are the one that's writing on the piece of paper right now. I would say that's the piece of advice I would give people, because I think like it's easy to be passive when you start this journey. Like, it's easy to just sit in, and I think we spend so much time not being affirmed or empowered to use our voices or to be the authors. So that's why we enter it from a passive state, because one, it probably doesn't still feel safe to do. And two, we're probably, especially as new folks in this journey or new to this journey, we maybe don't feel brave to then actually utilize our voice or utilize the pen in that way. And so I think the thing that it's an affirmation, 100%. Like, you are the author, and don't be afraid to pick that pen up, even if it's not public, even if you're not sharing that with other people other than yourself. Know that you're writing the story now.
Yeah. Beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
And you talked a little bit about, how you got here, how you are producer, creator of like a bajillion podcasts,
a podcast
and all of these things that you're doing for the larger community. It's been wonderful to watch. You had a kind of a winding path. You sounded like lost, right?
Very.
And, for the community at the Inclusion Initiative, I hear this a lot. I hear a lot of just because there's such a disconnect for people with who they are as a person, like they can't figure that out.
Sure.
Right. And so they either latch on really hard to one job identity and stay there for 20 plus years or whatever it is, stay there forever, right? They're afraid of change. Or they job hop because they're trying to figure it out as they go and nothing quite fits, or they don't quite ever feel belonging in any of these places. You and I like share that. Yeah. We both did the job hopping thing,
for sure.
Through, for various reasons, but also for me, it was definitely, I'm not reflected here. I can't find community here. I can't really, really, really authentically connect to people here because I have to hide a lot of who I am. I don't even know who I am. And I started my career in the Midwest, so I was always the Asian person.
Sure.
And I'm screaming like, no, I'm white just like you, and like I think I've heard you talk about, and I've certainly talked about, just this internalized racism that was learned, developed, fostered, cultivated, encouraged. I didn't realize how bad it was until my moment of realizing like, oh crap. Like, I don't appreciate being Asian. I don't even really identify that way. And I am completely missing out on this whole part of myself that's actually quite beautiful, right? And for me, it was in grad school, just being around people who were Asian that had grown up in their cultures, whether it was the US or abroad, had just such a lovely, healthy deep connection to their
Yeah.
culture, to how they looked, to how the food they ate, everything. And here I was like, I didn't even know how to order Korean food, you know?
For
Like,
sure. I still don't know how.
oh my gosh. But it's just so silly. It's so
Yeah.
silly looking
Well,
back.
it's
I mean,
little
it's not
things that you don't
silly.
think about. Yeah.
It's not silly, right? It's serious. But that was like my transition period of like, this is enough is enough.
Yeah.
I want that. Like, I want to be so proud of who I am, what I look like, where I come from. I want to have community and an instant connection like that. I could never truly instantly connect with anybody, right? Because I was never authentically showing up as me. So, you know, I just, I wanted to talk a little bit about you in Indy. Indy is your home, but you've kind of found a home in Indy, and you're really committed, right, to fostering and building more of a home in Indy for you, but also everybody else like you, or that are allies to you, right? And you want to be
Sure.
allies to them. And so I know that, you know, for a while, like the conversation piece, the Janchi show, some of your, you know, earlier iterations of your projects were more national in scope. And I know you do national work still, but now you've really honed in and focused. This is the year of community for the conversation piece. And that community is Indy. So talk to us a little bit about why now and how it's going.
Sure. I want to say the way you described how I felt about like home in Indy, I literally gave a presentation recently, almost verbatim described it the exact same way. Like
Oh, wow.
I've called it home, like I've lived here and it's been like home in that sense, but I don't think in the times that I've ever been here, like it really ever was like I felt like home. And recently, in the last 2 years especially, it has become that. And I feel like I really truly have roots here. And so that decision came about because of a couple things. So because of the Janchi show and because of working with Jerry, I got the opportunity to travel a lot after the lockdowns lifted and travel kind of opened back up a little bit. And one of the things that was occurring was whenever somebody would ask me where I was coming in from, because these places I was going to were LA and New York, like on the coast where Asian America is much more prevalent. People would ask me where I'm coming in from, and almost every time, not every time, but almost every time I get some version of the response when I told them I was coming from Indiana, of them saying, "Oh, there's Asian people in Indiana?" Like some version of that from other Asian people that I was meeting in these spaces. And at first, like I was laughing because I'm like, haha, I totally get it. I'm the Asian from Indiana and I thought that. But after like a year and a half of that, or like a year of that even, it became like less of a joke and more of almost like it I felt personally insulted because
Yeah.
I had started to meet and connect with the diaspora here. And it was actually not only existed, it was pretty damn diverse in terms of what it came and what like representing the continent as a whole. And you know, about it is it's like the AANHPI community here is not very visible. And so when you're trying to explain what is here, because of that lack of visibility, it's hard to translate it conversation with folks. So wanted to figure out a way to dispel this misconception. The other thing that was happening at the time was Emily had just found out she was pregnant. So we not only was I having these conversations, starting to find community, maybe not build community, but find community from an Asian American perspective. I was about to we were about to have our first kid. We had just bought a house here. Like we were literally settling in to Indianapolis. And so those two things really were the catalyst for wanting to focus my work in Indianapolis. And because I already had conversation piece and I really wasn't 100% sure what I was doing with it, I thought this is the avenue I think that I'm going to use to find my way into community and figure out where my place is. And so I ran kind of very low-key, non-marketed test run in November of 2023 for National Adoptee Awareness Month, and had 3 friends, adoptees in the city, come on and share their stories. And that went awesome. And I knew that, okay, I can film this stuff in person. I can sit down and have these conversations. I know kind of where to go. Let's kick it off. And in February, we kicked it off with our first few Indianapolis guests, and just have not stopped ever since. And doing that, we have started to do other things as well, like pop up at events and do just different things and podcasting. And we're starting to now like host events, not even related to the podcast. Like when I was here before, I never built community with anybody. Because I, like you said, you know, like I was moving around, I didn't know who I was. And if you would have asked Patrick back then, if he knew who he was, he probably would have gave you an answer and felt pretty confident that he knew who he was. But the truth is, he didn't. I think that that is what the show has helped me do, and the work that I've been doing here, but the intentional decision to try and build a community of people that I never had growing up, but that I definitely didn't have when I was here in Indy. So that not just a benefit for me, but it's a benefit for him to be able to see too and grow up with.
And not just a benefit for you and him, but a benefit for everyone in Indy, right? That is seeking spaces like this.
Hopefully, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if it impacts one person, you know, I think that that's a win. I'm trying to really focus on the small stuff at the moment. Like I'm shifting my focus major, like super micro at the moment, in terms of the work that I'm doing and community that I want to build for a number of reasons. But if we can help one person feel affirmed and empowered to do whatever it is that they're supposed to be doing in their life, great job, Patrick.
Yeah. Well, great job, Patrick, because I see it working already. I see it happening.
Thank you.
Already.
I appreciate it. Reciprocated.
Well, and there's so much resonance, right, for what you're building, not just for the Asian community or the adoptee community, but just, the community of people who don't feel seen or heard, and so, or belong, right?
Yeah.
So I have seen that reflected in just, the people that follow you. And yeah, it's been awesome. So let's talk a little bit about, now that you've been able to do this for a handful of years. Has it been four years?
So yeah, so it's about 4.5 years. I guess in June, technically, that's like will be the start of year 5 of my like coming to consciousness journey since like watching that movie. So yeah,
almost the 5-year mark. Wow. It's a big milestone. Yeah. So it, not everyone that has experiences like we do, right, have the opportunity to share the stories that we do, to have the conversations that we do, to do the work that we do.
Yep.
I left a 6-figure job to do this. That's a huge privilege, right? There is not a lot of people that can necessarily do that for various reasons. And not everyone should, right? Not everyone should. But if you do have the opportunity and you do have the privilege and you do have the desire to elevate others, elevate community, and elevate voices, even if it's your own, right? That's wonderful and it's great. And I really want more people to do that and feel empowered to do that. Let's talk about the privilege of storytelling. Like, for sure. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think the privilege of storytelling is something that I feel very strongly about. So I define the privilege of storytelling as the privilege being on the recipient of someone's story. And so like the privilege is being able to be in the audience and to learn anything about anybody. Or to like whether you're in an audience of 50 or whether you're in a one-on-one conversation with somebody, and in the one-on-one conversation is probably even more important, because for somebody to feel safe enough to share something with you and then share it with you, like we should treat that as sacred. That's a privilege. And I feel like we've lost that. We've lost the plot on like not taking somebody's story for granted, and it feels like we're entitled a lot anymore. And I think social media makes it feel like that. I think, the way traditional media covers people, and just like the way that we handle information is just careless, I think. And I think that is antithetical to what I believe the privilege of storytelling is, which is that we handle all of that with care, and that we are very lucky to be able to that you would sit down and have this conversation with me and share anything personal about your life at all. Like, that's a privilege for me to have, and then anytime I have a guest on, like, every single thing that they share with me, especially and most importantly, if it's intimate or vulnerable to the context of their life, like, that is a sacred privilege. Like, why was anybody telling me stuff like that? Nobody. Who, like, why? And if it means that I'm doing something right to be able to facilitate a space like that where people feel safe and brave enough to do so, that's awesome. And like, when I'm talk about the privilege of storytelling, like, that's what I'm referring to, is like that people feel that, and that we as the receiver of said story understand it's our privilege to be able to receive that. How do you define it? Like, what does it mean to you? I don't think we've ever had this conversation in depth before.
You're turning on host mode on me.
Well, yeah.
You can tell there's two podcasters right now in this conversation. The more experienced one is flipping the tables here. But I would say, yeah, I agree with you in terms of storytelling, the privilege of it, how it's kind of been, I don't know if it's the right word, commoditized almost now, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No, I think it's 100% correct.
I think, lived experience is a very important, it's very important to respect it, but I also think it gets used
Sure.
too, and in the wrong ways at times. But in the privilege of storytelling for me is really understanding, right, what the privilege is. Being able to recognize what that means for you and understand that, because privilege means something different to a lot of different people.
Yep.
It shows up differently depending on who you are. Many, 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 many of us have some forms of privilege. And it's just really important to recognize that for ourselves, even if we are struggling, or even if we are a person of color, or even if we are, on lower socioeconomic status, like, we do carry privilege, most of us. And so for me, I really hope that we can start to talk about that more as people, even if we're not, the white male or whatever.
For sure.
We need to honor and recognize it, because we can then utilize it to help each other.
Exactly.
We all can empower each other with the privileges that we have. For us being able to, for now, be able to tell our stories and have the freedom to do so without retribution, without, fear of whatever it is. That's a huge privilege too. I agree with you on what you said, but I also think it's recognizing that we just even have that privilege to begin with, and understanding what that means for us.
I consider that to be a human right. Like, your voice and how you use it, like, you have every right to do that. And like, I think of it as less a privilege, but I don't disagree with your definition of it at all. I think it's 100% valid and on point. I'm positioning storytelling as like, it is your right to do that. Like, and people should not be able to take that right away from you, as we see happening constantly right now with other human and civil rights. I love your definition, because I don't believe that there even is one right definition for how you define the privilege of storytelling. I think it's subjective to the person, and I think that's exactly what you laid out in your definition, because privilege is different for everybody else, or for each individual person, the levels and access and everything that comes with it. And at the end of the day, like, all our definitions can exist in the same space at the same time and in the same area as other people's ideas and definitions. And that's what gives power, and that's what the privilege of it is that we can all then have our own idea and define it in our own ways, and no one person is less valid or one person's definition is less valid than the other person's. It's just that's the way they're moving, and we just all move in our own way.
Yeah, the multiple things can be true at once, right? And we say that a lot as adoptees too. Like, this is true and this is true at the same time.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah, exactly. So what is now going on in your world with the conversation piece, with the Janchi show? What's coming up? What are you excited about? What do you want people to know?
Lots of stuff happening. The Janchi show, we are continuing forward as ever. I think we're like on a bi-weekly release now, so only 2 episodes a month. But we should be cracking 200 by the end of the year. So if we can keep that schedule up, which is, I feel like, is a good milestone, a good achievement. So
That's fantastic.
yeah. So shout out to you and everybody that's come on the show and everybody that's listened to the show, because people are still tapping in. So it's 100% worth doing. So continuing to do that. We got a recording this Sunday as of when we're recording this. Conversation piece, continuing to stay focused on Indianapolis. Should be hitting 150 by October. So I'm planning some stuff for that, but we are covering a lot of events this summer. We are also dabbling in, like I said at the beginning, some event production. I'm not sure when this episode comes out, but on the 4th of May, I'm hosting what we've labeled as Indy's first AANHPI community market. So I mentioned earlier, I'm like focused on micro. What I'm focused for the rest of 2025 is how do we build community, and how do we support like local small business owners, particularly from communities of the global majority, and not be reliant on institutional funding. Because I have read the writing on multiple walls, and I know that the things that we want to do are going to be hard to achieve. How can we continue to build community and do things that help people, support people, uplift people? That's what we're going to do. For conversation piece, still focusing on Indy. We're going to be popping up a number of different events this summer. So figuring out different ways to, again, build community. Like you said at the beginning, this is the year of community. That's my personal word for the year. So figuring out how we can keep strengthening those ties, building those bonds. This AANHPI community market that we're hosting on May the 4th. I'm not 100% sure when this episode is dropping, but that is when that event is taking place. Is me leaning into that micro focus that I was talking about. It's just like 5 or 6 vendors, low lift, no cost for them, and hopefully we can get a few hundred people there that can buy out all of their stuff and send them home with a really good Sunday afternoon pop-up. But
Awesome.
Stuff like that is really what I'm interested in doing for the rest of 2025. Podcasting.
Awesome.
That's what you can expect from me and Conversation Piece 2025.
That's amazing. That sounds fun. It sounds like a lot, but I know you'll pull it off.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Spectacular.
I appreciate that.
And 150 for a conversation piece, like, yay! That's amazing.
Yeah, incredible. It's pretty wild. Yeah, I honestly can't believe it myself. So I appreciate that.
I'm on episode 15, so I'll let you know how I feel.
You're doing it. Hey, it means that I have way too much time, I think is what it means. So
no, it's awesome. It's been great. Well, cool. So we're going to transition to rapid fire in a second, but Patrick, can you share with our audience how they can support you and get involved?
Oh, for sure. Best way to support me is if you like the shows that I'm a part of, the Janchi show or Conversation Piece, just tell a friend. That is the best way right now, I think, to support either of the things that I'm doing. If you really want to tap in a little bit further, you can follow me on Instagram at Patrick in the World, or you can follow Conversation Piece at Conversation Piece Pod, or the Janchi Show at Janchi Show. JanchiShow.com for everything else Janchi Show related, and ConversationPiecePod.com for everything Conversation Piece related. But yeah, just tell a friend if you like the show. That would be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to drop those links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Seriously, like, you don't need sponsors. You don't need partners.
If you want to sponsor the show, that would be great. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm telling you, like, I'm focused on the micro. If it makes sense, it makes sense. But like, the shows will continue to go on. We're gonna find funding somewhere. If it continues to be my own pocket, yeah. If you want to sponsor the show, if you want to do anything together, I'm always open to collaboration. I'm always open to figuring out and connecting with new people and figuring out how we can work together to make cool shit happen and to have really good conversations. So yeah, if you're interested in figuring out how to tell your own story or do conversation based media stuff, hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you, Patrick. And I encourage.
Thanks for prompting me to ask for more support.
Yeah, come on. And I'm just gonna prompt my community now. Support Patrick. Like, I know there's so many of you that have really benefited from his work, his content, his labor of love. And so if you're in a position to do so, please support
I appreciate that. Are you sure there's not anything else?
Come on.
All right. Hilarious. Hey, my coach here would love that you said that. So I can't wait to share that with him. Yeah.
B school did something for me, right?
For sure. For sure. Hey, you're good at what you do.
Thanks. All right. Rapid fire. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Favorite food?
Oh, God. Cheeseburger. I told you I was basic. I'm so basic. Actually, if I could, I'll throw kimchi bokkeumbap out there. And then a very close second of kimchi jjigae. So something kimchi based for sure.
Okay. That's great. That's great. But yeah, I mean, cheeseburger, it does not surprise me. Midwesterner. From a fellow Midwesterner, I say it in love. At least you didn't say pizza. Like, that's what everyone's been saying.
Do you want? That was literally the first thing that came into my mind.
I was just gonna say, I bet you wanted to say it though.
That's why I paused and I went, because I knew I shouldn't say pizza.
All right. What's your superpower as an adoptee?
Oh, as an adoptee?
Yeah.
My adoptee superpower is the ability to have a conversation with other adoptees and potentially have them feel safe enough to share. That's my superpower.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yes.
Thank you.
What did you dream about doing when you were a kid? What did little Patrick want to do?
Oh, little Patrick wanted to be an NBA basketball player.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. Are you a Pacers fan?
I am a Pacers fan. Yes, I am a Pacers fan.
Am I going to get in trouble?
No, not at all.
Like Indianapolis, all your Indianapolis fans are like, "What? You weren't like gung ho about the Pacers?"
Maybe I am a fan. I know a lot more about Pacers history, I think, than most casual Pacers fans might. So good. I think I am a fan.
Cool. All right. What's one thing on your bucket list?
Skydive.
Okay.
Gary? Skydive, no assistance, which I know is not possible, but that's what I want to do.
Oh, I mean, anything's possible, but
don't have enough money to do it, I don't think. Or I don't have my pilot's license, because I guess I could just fly it up there myself and jump out. But
into the morbid mind of Patrick Armstrong. All right. I hope that Emily is not listening to this. She might already know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She would be like, that's par for the course.
Oh, that makes me shaky just thinking about that. Whew. No. All right. Maybe I'm learning too much about Patrick. I'm just kidding. No, it's fine. That's what the rapid fire's for. No, that's awesome. It's really awesome. You're a very brave person. Okay. And so, we talked a little bit about, the advice that you would give fellow adoptees just like navigating their journey in the beginning stages, right? But what's a piece of advice that you just want to share with our audience? In general
Piece of advice. Well, you can't go wrong with that piece of advice I shared for adoptees specifically. Like, you are the author of your own story. I think right now the piece of advice I would give to just anyone in general is to just exist as yourself. I think right now we are in a time, I don't know that we've never been in a time where there hasn't been an attack on somebody's existence. But I've been talking a lot recently about the dominant narrative of adoption. And one of the best ways that one of the best tools in our tool belt to dismantle that is literally to exist. Because folks who have experiences as adoptees that run counter to this dominant narrative are direct refutations of it. And simply by existing, and it sucks that they had to have a lived experience that wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
However, because they have that lived experience, they are the other threads in the fabric that makes up our larger adoptee community, but humanity at large. And that goes for everybody who is listening to this, and everybody on the planet. Like, just existing as you is resisting this attempted erasure that we currently see. This really big push to erase a wide swath of people. Simply existing stands against everything that is going on in that direction. And so I know it's like, it feels easy, and there's a lot of privilege, I think, that comes with how you are able to exist. But I think for those people who have certain privileges that other people don't, particularly in communities that they are also a part of, I think it's imperative on us to exist in that way, to stand in gaps, to put our privilege on the line, because people's lives are on the line. Yeah. And so keep existing, keep being you, and you're awesome. Unless you're a bigoted person, then you're not awesome.
No.
And I don't think I like you.
Yeah, the caveat. Yes. No, 100% agree. Beautifully said. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for being on the show. I haven't laughed as much in a while with a guest. I really appreciate you.
Nice. That's all I ever asked for. I love to get the laughs. I love to laugh, amazing. So whenever we can laugh, it's good.
It's been amazing. Yeah. And I'll drop where you can support, sponsor, follow Patrick in the show notes. And again, if you're a fan of the show, please share us, like the show, subscribe, all the things. The Inclusion Conversation is brought to you by the Inclusion Initiative. And I'm your host, Grace Young Foster, and it's been just a pleasure being in community with all of you. Thank you, Patrick, and we will see you soon.
Thanks,
Take care,
Grace.
my friend. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, share, and follow us. Check out our show notes to know where to find us on social, and our website is theinclusioninitiative.com. If you're an adoptee of color or a foster care alum, and you want to join our professional community, it's free, by the way, hit me up via DM, or you can find our email in the show notes. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.